This is me 5 hours into searching for my lost homemade $1,000 racing drone. Yep, that's right, a freestyle pilot with a racing drone. Before we get there though, we do need to take a second, rewind and go back a couple of weeks. February 17th, New Zealand opens. Now, you may be wondering what the hell someone like me, an average FPV freestyler, is doing amongst a national racing event. Have I ever raced before? No. Have I even flown with a group of people before? Also no. So to answer the question, I went to New Zealand's national racing event solely to meet like-minded people, and boy oh boy, did I do just that. I met well over 20 amazing pilots, one of which was racing champion Thomas Bittmater, who I interviewed in this video on the screen now. But you see, along with the pilots, I also met my newest challenge. That challenge is racing. And as I found out, I'm terrible at it. We're gonna go and actually race for the first time. Well, I race, but I'm on my own. Racing on the official New Zealand Opens track.
Going good.
Oh, I called it! He's dead! No! However, you probably can tell by the fact that I now have my own racing drone, I may have gotten slightly hooked on the idea and wanted to go full send. February 26th, build time. It took a solid 9 days from having my first proper racing experience to having over $1,500 worth of parts and equipment arriving at my doorstep.
Oh dear.
I watched tutorial after tutorial, disassembled the frame multiple times, and burned my fingers while attempting to solder. Because of the fact that this was my first time, I didn't even understand what each of the components did. Like, I didn't know what a VTX was for. I thought that the signal came straight from the flight controller. I mean, hell, I didn't even know what the basics of putting the frame together was like. We've made a little bit of progress after figuring out that half the other stuff can't go on until other stuff happens because everything connects to everything. But throughout this first time process, I learned so much that I could happily build another drone now and understand most of the parts of it. This build was followed by hours staring at a screen trying to wrap my head around Betaflight and BL Heli, both of which I've never used in depth before. And after all that time had passed, I was left with a quad that armed, sent out a video feed, and played Crazy Frog every time it started. So it is now testing time. I've come out to a massive big field area, so there's pretty much no chance of this thing going anywhere and actually hurting anybody. I'm nervous, but so excited at the same time. So let's just get this thing plugged in and see if it can hover. That's my first test. Let's see if we can get it to hover. Now, straight off the bat, I had issues getting the quad's video feed started. I had to remove the top plate, restart the quad, and then it fired up. I mean, look, I don't quite understand this. I just took this off really temporarily and quickly, and it seemed to fix all of our issues. It was a bit weird, but I did just keep on going, you know, minor issues with a first time build and all. So I did my first flight in angle mode where everything seemed to be sweet. There was just a slight adjustment that I had to make on my controller as the trim was a little bit off, but this had nothing to do with the drone. Holy shit, I made something that flies. I then gave the goggles a try where I had a bit of a surprise to say the least. I would happily show you guys the video feed right now, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, the SD card's not working in this, there's no hope. My racing quad is running analog, which I haven't flown with since my first quad over a year and a half ago, so it was a major difference to my usual DJI HD. Analog is going to take a long time to get used to. You can't see shit. Regardless, I was stoked to have this thing in the air and flying, so I had a bit of a rip around and gave it some boost to see if anything bad happened. And that's when the idiot in me did this. There's a few things I want to tweak on it because there's definitely some weird things going on. I don't know quite what it is. It might be tuning, it might be, yeah, like I said, I don't know. I don't know this stuff. So I'm gonna go chat to some people and find out what's happening and fix it, because I want to build the perfect racing drone. The issue here isn't with what I said, but instead with the fact that I decided to put one more battery through it after this, instead of just packing up and heading home. And you know what they say, bad things always happen on the last pack. Whoa, something cut out there. And the drone is down. Have no video feed. I'm gonna go find it now. Hopefully, we still have some controller. It settled in real quick that I had lost video feed before disarming the quad and honestly had no idea where it might have landed. I couldn't look back at the DVR to see which direction I was headed in as the SD card wasn't working. I couldn't use the ESC beeper because I had no remote signal, and I hadn't taken my goggles off quick enough to see where it went. This left me alone, searching through scrub, bush, and paddocks with only my eyes to find it. I've gone from like, haha, it's kind of funny, to, oh shit, maybe I've really lost it, to, shit, I've really lost it. And I'm gonna pick up my girlfriend Amy to help. We searched for the next 2 hours together, getting more and more hopeless as time went on. I took my DJI drone up to scan the fields, we clambered up dirt cliffs, cut ourselves on scrub and branches, all to end the day with no drone. Coming back tomorrow, and hopefully we can find it. Yeah. Well, it's now day 2 of looking for the drone. I've got my flatmate Bill coming out with me today, and if I can't find it with him this morning, I do also happen to have 2 other people that are going to come out, some FPV friends that I've got here in Monica, that can hopefully help me find it if we can't find it this morning. I started off with a bit more hope and another set of fresh eyes. We searched in a grid pattern across all the possible crash locations, and all up spent yet another 2 hours wandering around, bringing the total search time to 5 hours. It was at this moment that we went off in a completely different direction just to make sure that we had ticked off literally every box in regards to the search. And that is when we found it.
No chance. It's the fucking drone. Yeah. Yeah.
So we searched all of this paddock over here up to those trees, all down in here, all along here, up and over the back there, and by the looks of it, it hit somewhere along here, rolled down and into a place where I couldn't see, and then the glistening sun got our props. I could see that. Don't know what's wrong with it. We'll figure that one out now. It's all part of the journey. Now, I actually ran this issue past some of my friends that I made at NZO, New Zealand Opens, and we came to the conclusion that I am not the smartest cookie around. When putting my quad together, I neglected to shrink wrap over the VTX and the RX, which is why when I first tried to start up, it wouldn't give me video feed because the VTX was simply shorting out on other components. Hence why when I removed the top plate, it separated the VTX from the other metals and allowed everything to start up like normal. I obviously had managed to put the top plate back on, and the VTX must have been far enough away from the other metals to fly through the first 2 packs, but then when I was flying my last pack, I gave the throttle a few good punches, which must have shifted the VTX slightly, shorted both itself and the flight controller out, causing a complete loss of video signal and a desync of the motors talking to the flight controller. So my dumbass should have installed heat shrink. Alright, and we are back in the testing paddock. And this time, I brought a friend. We've got Amy is there, who's going to be spotting for me to make sure that if I do happen to crash around here again, that we can find it instantaneously and not have to search for 5 hours. So, learning quick from my mistakes there. We've also heat shrinked up the, heat shrink. We've heat shrinked up the VTX and the Crossfire module as well. So both of those now no longer can short circuit out, and we should ideally have consistent range and consistent video signal the entire time. So fingers crossed on that one. Otherwise, the only last thing to try out is to see if it actually still flies after its crash. The time has come to do the same as what we did last time. We seem to be fine.